Welcome to study session 9, Leadership and Power in Organizations. Introduction. Leadership is central in the management of organizations. This lecture x-rays who a leader is and the role of leadership in organizations. Most scholars agree that for a leader to be effective, he or she must be able to exercise power in the form of social influence in order to get things done. Objectives. After studying this chapter, the reader should be able to 1. Explain the concept of leadership and its importance in organizational functioning. 2. Identify and describe 5 bases of power exercised by leaders in organizations. What is leadership? Across the ages, leadership has remained topical among people from all walks of life. The reason is because leadership is needed at all levels of human grouping, whether it is a family, religious group, political group, school, work team, or work organization, for that entity to survive and succeed. This indicates that leadership is a key element that can impact on the effective functioning of man in group settings. There are basically 3 types of leaders, and the difference between them is mainly in their relationship with subordinates. This relationship affects the performance of members of the group. These 3 types of leaders are leaders who do things through people, B. Leaders who do things for people, C. Leaders who do things through people. The third type exemplifies the true function of leadership, which is getting things done through people. What then is leadership? Leadership is the process by which one person influences the thoughts, attitudes, and behaviors of others. It also refers to the process of getting things done through people. For instance, Locke, 1991, defined leadership as the process of inducing others to take action towards a goal. Similarly, Ugwebu, 1989, conceptualized leadership as the process of influencing the activities of an organized group in its efforts towards the achievement of a set mission, goals, and objectives. Good leaders influence followers' behaviors in the following ways: by making them believe in themselves and their abilities, by properly rewarding them for good performance, by making them take ownership of the process, by making them feel accountable and responsible. For leaders to be effective, they must be able to perform 2 main roles, which are 1. Achievement of task goals, and 2. Maintenance of strong relationship between the leader, members, and the group at large. In fulfilling these roles, a leader must satisfy the following needs. Task needs. Every group exists for a reason or purpose. This purpose is the task the group was created to fulfill. The leader's role, therefore, is to ensure that the expectation for the group is met by the cooperative efforts of its members. Failure to perform to expectation may lead to frustration, infighting, criticisms, and ultimately disintegration of the group. Group maintenance needs. The group can only achieve its objectives if the group is held together as a unit. It is the job of the leader to build team cohesion and morale that keeps its members together. Individual needs. When people work in a group, they may have their individual needs which they expect to be satisfied at work. It is the responsibility of the leader to understand what these needs are and devise strategies that would harmonize these personal needs with that of task and of the group. These 3 needs are interdependent to the extent that the leader's action in one area has effect on the others. For instance, when an employee's personal need is overlooked by the leader, it may affect their contribution to group tasks and ultimately may have negative consequences on group effectiveness. Leadership and management. Are leadership and management synonymous terms? Over the years, people have tended to use both terms interchangeably, whereas they do not mean exactly the same thing. The manager's functions revolve around three core roles. A. Interpersonal roles. B. Decisional roles. C. Informational roles. Jones, George, and Hill 2000 defined management as the planning, organization. Take two. Defined management as the planning, organizing, leading, and controlling of resources to achieve organizational goals effectively and efficiently. These functions indicate that management is merely an executive role in which the manager is responsible for strategic implementation of the vision painted by the leader. For optimum performance, however, a situation where a manager is able to combine managerial and leadership functions will better serve the purpose of the organization. Locke, 1991, underscored the role of leadership in ensuring the survival of any organization when he stated thus: "Our business short on capital can borrow money, and one with a poor location can move. A good leader is one who 1. Inspires subordinates to choose the right action from a variety of available options. 2. Motivates subordinates by rewarding good performance, and 3. Shows concern for subordinates' well-being and welfare." Effectiveness and efficiency are objectives of utmost importance to organizations. Leaders must be able to perform certain critical leadership functions in order to achieve these desirable goals. Research over the years has identified key leadership functions common among effective leaders. They include the following. 1. They function as mentors. As mentors, they motivate, energize, and inspire those under their watch to work towards attainment of a vision. 2. Recruitment of new members. Effective leaders have it as a responsibility to recruit talented personnel into the team or work group which they oversee. Technical and administrative skills. Possession of requisite technical knowledge and administrative skills enhance leadership effectiveness. The right technical know-how enables the leader to purchase the right materials and resources, while administrative skill enhances the ability of the leader to effectively direct, plan, and coordinate the group towards achievement of its goal. Monitoring and evaluation of performance. Effective leaders should be able to objectively evaluate the extent to which the group is meeting its objectives and determine whether the group is still in line or has deviated from the right track. Importance of leadership. A. Leaders help solve the problems of the group. B. Leaders help transmit group visions, objectives, and goals. C. Leaders help uphold group visions, objectives, and values. Leaders lead and direct people to the predetermined objectives. D. Leaders develop subordinates or followers. E. Leaders provide organization and administration for the group. F. Leaders evaluate and initiate adjustment that enhances group functioning. Theories of leadership. Due to the complexity associated with leading, a number of theories have emerged to explain leadership. Generally, these theories emphasize different aspects of leadership and how they are related to leaders' effectiveness. Trait approach theory. This is the oldest approach to the study of leadership. It is based on the presumptions that some people have inborn traits that make them better leaders than others, and that the traits of good leaders can be identified. Proponents of this approach argue a good leader in one situation will be a good leader in other situations. In line with the assumption of trait approach, personalities such as Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, Chief Obafemi Awolowo, and Queen Amina would fall under this classification of leadership. Leadership motivation, which is an important element for evaluating leadership effectiveness, can manifest either as personalized power motivation, or socialized power motivation. Those leaders who view power as an end in itself are high on personal power motivation. To achieve their goals of serving the people, they establish robust working relationships with others and build bridges across demographic lines. A good example of a leader who was high on socialized power motive in Nigeria is the late General Murtala Muhammad. Path Goal Theory. This theory was propounded by House and Mitchell in 1974. It states that subordinate performance and job satisfaction are a function of the interplay of situational characteristics, for example job hazard, subordinate characteristics, for example personality, and leadership style of the supervisor. Supportive style. This style involves mainly showing concern for the needs and welfare of the subordinates. Directive style. This style concentrates on structuring job tasks for subordinates and making task expectations known to them. Participative style. This approach involves seeking subordinates' view and making them a place in the decision-making process. Achievement style. Here, challenging tasks and high performance standards are set for the subordinates. The leader stresses achievement and good performance. The normative contingency model. Vroom and Yeton, 1973's model of leadership indicates the supervisory approach that is expected to be most effective in a particular situation when making decisions. In essence, the model is designed only for decision making and not for other aspects of leadership, such as generating solutions to problems or directing the activities of subordinates. The supervisor makes the decision alone. 1. 2. The supervisor gets information from subordinates and makes the decisions alone. 3. Supervisor discusses the problem with some subordinates and then makes the decision. 4. The supervisor discusses the problem with all subordinates in a meeting and makes the decision. The supervisor presents the problem to all subordinates in a meeting and lets them decide. A careful look at the 5 approaches shows that they could be combined in several ways. For example, the supervisor can act alone. He can turn over the problem to the group or can adopt various stages of sharing the decision, from merely soliciting information to actually discussing the problem and considering subordinates' viewpoint. Leadership styles. There are many styles of leadership that a leader may adopt while dealing with people in their teams. Leaders can be classified on leadership styles using the extremes highlighted below. Transactional, transformational. Transactional leaders are so called because they trade money, jobs, and security for compliance. Transformational leaders, on the other hand, motivate people to strive for higher level goals. Enabler, controller. Enablers are leaders who inspire people with their vision of the future and empower them to accomplish team goals. On the contrary, controllers manipulate people to obtain their compliance. Autocratic, democratic. Leaders with autocratic tendency use their position to impose their decisions on subordinates. Autocratic leaders neither share nor delegate responsibilities to subordinates. They make all the decisions concerning the operation of the organization, materials needed and in what quantity, and even dictate who should be on which team. When they have deputies, they are chosen because of their ability to take to. When they have deputies, they are chosen based on their ability or willingness to conform rather than on consideration for professional competence. Autocratic leadership style leads to a situation where the leader is psychologically alienated from employees and followers. Democratic leadership style encourages participation of subordinates in the decision-making process through consultation or committee system. Subordinates can criticize the leader without fear of punishment. They also regard the opinion of more experienced group members and take steps to create a feeling of esprit de corps among group members, management, and union. Leadership and exercise of power in organizations. Charismatic, non-charismatic. Charismatic leaders are characterized as visionary leaders, achievement-oriented, calculated risk-takers, and good communicators. They rely on their personality and inspirational qualities to achieve compliance. Non-charismatic leaders rely chiefly on their knowledge, confidence, and analytical skills to deal with problems. Leaders, whether in work organizations, schools, political parties, or social groups, are charged with the responsibility to get things done, and in the process of doing this, they exercise power. Power can be described as influence that works. The use of power as a tool for influencing behavior is widespread in organizations, cutting across layers of authority. CEOs, Chief Executive Officers, supervisors, managers, and even pressure groups such as trade unions exercise power to varying degrees in organizations. However, there are differences in the scope of power associated with each position. A CEO's power may potentially influence the behavior of every member of the organization, while that of a manager is mostly limited only to the behavior of employees who are members of a work group or a department under the manager's supervision. Basis of power in organizations. In any organization, the relationship between a higher status employee and a lower status worker creates the opportunity for the exercise of power by the status holder. This is because the dynamics of the relationship normally requires that a subordinate secures the approval of the manager or supervisor before they carry out certain activities. For example, demands to be absent from work, to be late to work, to attend to an emergency at home make the exercise of power by the superior inevitable. Pioneering work by French and Raven, 1959, culminated in the identification of 5 types of bases of power: legitimate, reward, coercive, reference, and expert power. We now consider each power base in detail. Legitimate power. This type of power is derived from the position held by an individual in an organization. It is the power a leader enjoys by virtue of the office they occupy, either through election, nomination, or appointment. The power exercised by the ASU chairperson of the University of Ibadan, for instance, is legitimate power. The same is true for the power exercised by the Oni of Ife, the president of the Students' Union, or faculty association president, because its authority has its basis in the position or office occupied. Legitimate power is also known as position power. Reward power. This is power that a manager has over subordinates because they believe that he or she has the capacity to control the rewards that they get. Within the workplace, the rewards are essentially positive outcomes such as promotion, salary increase, favorable recommendation, improved facilities, having one's request granted, and so on. It is worthy of note that the use of reward power is effective when the resources in the possession of the manager are of value to subordinates, and access to the reward is higher when they conform to the manager's directive. Reward power may be called utility power because the power in the relationship is based on the useful exchange of goods and services between the leader and subordinates. Coercive power. This is that power that subordinates allude to superiors because of the belief that the superior has the capacity to administer punishment for failure to comply with managerial directive. Managers with coercive powers have the capacity to mediate punishments such as transfers, to an unenviable post, refusal to recommend for promotion, denial of pay raise, unfavorable annual evaluation, and so on. Referent power. This is the type of power that arises out of the strong attraction and liking that subordinates have for the manager, which elicits compliance to the manager's directive. The manager's good reputation earns them subordinates' goodwill and strengthens their desire to conform or comply with their requests. Expert power. A manager is said to have expert power if he or she is perceived by subordinates as possessing the knowledge, training, experience, and expertise needed to achieve the group's goals or objectives. Power can be abused unless it is used effectively. Carter, 1977, observed that leaders who are able to use and manage power effectively exhibit these characteristics. 1. Investment. Effective use of power stems from perceiving it as an investment. This means viewing power as a resource that can be either nurtured to growth or wasted. An individual can harness resources to grow and broaden the power available to them. 2. Intuitive. This involves displaying an instinctive understanding of power relations, including how to acquire power and use it across a wide range of situations. Leaders who use power effectively acknowledge that in making use of power, it is people and not objects that are influenced by it. 3. Maturity. People are quick to detect and resist attempts to illegally acquire power and use it on them. The use of power, therefore, is most effective when it has its source from those exposed to it. 4. Repertoire. They have a broad and wide range of power sources to choose from when the need arises. 5. Career. There are variations in the amount of power each job commands, such that some jobs are more powerful than the other. People who are able to use power effectively actively seek power-wielding positions. 6. Sensitivity. They have an understanding of others' feelings regarding how power is obtained and its proper application or use. In other words, they are careful to use power such that people's sensibility are not trampled underfoot. Study session summary. In this study session, we have learned the concept of leadership and its importance in organizational functioning. We also identified and described 5 bases of power exercised by leaders in organizations. This is the end of study session 9. Thank you.